I was just talking to someone just before I came on here, actually. And you need to know that we form that relationship with every single person we deal with. I'm going to get to know them because real healing happens in a real relationship. And the people that care the most, I've learned in my life of 60 plus years on this planet, are the ones that have probably been hurt the worst or gone through the most hurt. But nobody ever talks about that. No one ever talks about what you've been through. They just care about where you are. But everybody's got that thing, that story, those things, those pain points that just, well, they're the catalyst that get you to where you are.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to ALLSMITH. Today I'm joined by a naturopathic doctor, an author, a speaker, a former professional athlete, and a retired SWAT team member who has dedicated his life to true healing and transformation. None other than Dr. Mark Sherwood. Welcome to the show, man.
Hey, thanks for having me. I've been looking forward to this, so I appreciate it very much.
I loved what you said that true healing starts with relationships. That was something that we talked a little bit about offline. And that's a lost art, man. Like we talk about almost on every episode that doctors are in a tough spot. They put their time, energy, and finances into medical school. They end up over six figures in debt. So they're seeking patient care, not realizing that it is an incentive model. So the psychology gets manipulated based on the incentive. And then it's about what you said, which is they don't care about the story. They care about, okay, what are your signs and symptoms now? Let me help fix that. What are your thoughts on just an overarching kind of summary for our listeners around the medical system and maybe 3 bullet points that we can pursue to try to make the system a little bit better around relationships?
I think number one is to really understand that the health of this nation right now is in the worst place it's ever been in the history of this nation's existence, probably the history of the world. And it's because we've got a system that's based upon broken promises and broken premises. And what I mean by that is the sense that, as you correctly pointed out, the system today, which we've soon adopted or seemingly adopted as a mainstream medical system, is based upon nothing more than symptoms that are put into an algorithm formula, Bryce, then to generate prescription medication. And that does nothing more than treat a symptom, it gets them out of your office, and it moves on. But it doesn't fix the problem. It actually makes it worse because you've trained the system, which is trained the people to go back and look for a question, an answer to a question that's a broken question. Find out what's wrong with me. And in any relationship you have, if you spend time focusing on what's wrong, you're going to miss what's right. So that whole system is broken fundamentally. And I don't see it getting fixed because right now it's been sold down the river to profit and money. And you mentioned doctors are in debt, but they go into this a lot of times for two different reasons. One, to make a lot of money, or two, to help people. But in that current system, the way it is, you're not going to be allowed to help people, not to the fullest, because you can't form a relationship. Step out of that to what my wife and I do. We have a unique perspective because my wife, who is an osteopathic doctor, she was fired from the system because too many people got too well and her quote unquote payer mix did not match up to what their standards were. So we had that pain point towards the development of the Functional Medical Institute. And we really believe that 3 things people can do right now to understand how to take charge of this broken system is, number one, to become your own system. You become your own doctor. You look yourself in the mirror and you say, today I'm going to take care of you, and I'm going to do a good job with that. I'm not going to let you down today. And that means not conforming to the ways of the world. It means not conforming to the patterns, but that means forming your own ways to live in a healthy manner to increase your health span. And I think number two behind that is to develop lifestyle habits that matter. You got control of what you put in your mouth, what you put in your head, what you put in your eyes, ears, and heart. And we need to take charge of those things right now. because we're always being filled with social media with stuff that doesn't really bring life, doesn't really bring hope. It more hopelessness and anxiety than anything else. And I think number three, for me is I I mean I get there's healing in nature, man. I want to get outside, feel the wind. I know where you are, you can go to the beach. I love it. Just got back from a warm place, so I like doing stuff. And I find that those three they help me, and I think they help pretty much all of our listeners right now.
Mm-hmm. I really appreciate you sharing that, Dr. Mark. And it's an interesting thought process because a lot of it comes down to capitalism and marketing. And I'm formerly like all into capitalism, but I pause for a second as it continues to evolve. And I just observe the world and I think, okay, if you have incentive, you can predict behavior.
Yeah,
And unfortunately, monetary incentive creates bad behavior. And so
yeah,
we paused there for a second. It's like, okay, we that worked for a while. Like it got us from A to B, but if we're trying to go from B to C, we have to dive in a little bit deeper. We're growing upwards, more money, more impact, more growth, all these different things. But I don't know that the roots are that strong. I don't know that we're growing downwards. And that's an interesting dichotomy, right? Because it's like growth sounds like we're moving the needle in the right direction. But it's like, hold on. If you grow so much upwards and there's no roots, when there's a storm that comes, which we all know there's going to be a storm that comes, whether that's sickness, illness, life challenge, God trying to teach us some sort of adversity, how to overcome it. Life's not happening to us, it's happening for us. If we don't have roots, we're going to fall, man.
yeah. You're not going to have resilience if you don't have a foundation. Resilience is the ability to sort of be able to overcome life's challenges, the weather life's storms, and sort of conquer life's mountains you have to climb. But resilience doesn't come from growing upward. Resilience comes from trying to learn to grow inward, and become stronger as a human being. And in my 60 plus years on planet Earth, there's been a lot of times where I've learned to turn down money to maintain integrity. But it wasn't always, it's like sometimes you find yourself chasing the dollar, but really that doesn't bring satisfaction, never brings happiness, never brings peace. There's something more valuable than that. It's probably the ability, if I really simplify it, to go to sleep every night knowing that you've done your best with every single human being and every single encounter you try to leave them in a better place. And that's honest to God, that's my hope and my prayer today. And I do a lot of broadcasts, whether it be television, movies, or podcasts. But honest to God, I want to leave it in a better place. I want to leave this conversation in a better place, and it's that important. And to me, that's where probably satisfaction and joy in life can be found the best.
Yeah, it's very well said in the sense of like there's certain things to the human experience that can't be necessarily seen or heard, but must be felt.
Mm.
And if you take that same analogy and create a tether or an energetic cord towards capitalism, it's like true success isn't just impact or monetary growth, it's intrinsic peace.
That's right.
It's like John Wooden's definition of success, which is peace of mind, knowing that you did your best to become the best that you're capable of becoming. And if you take that and then push it forward even further, it's like if you help others become the best that they're capable of becoming now, whether that's medicine, whether that's health, whether that's mindset, finances, whatever arena that may be in, you can sleep at night. But what I'm curious around, Dr. Mark, because people think that this is like a tangent arena associated with health and wellness, but so many people right now are like, why should I sign up for that app? What can I get? Why should I go to that doctor? What can I get? Why should I sign up with that trainer, that coach? What can I get? It's a taking. Everybody shows up with open hands. They're here and they're like, what? Feed me, give me the thing. But I think opposite. I think, what can I give?
Yeah, no doubt.
And my curiosity with you is, how do we take that mindset and make it more popular? Because it's not it's not popular in the beginning because it takes time to build, like you said, the relationship, the trust, and for that planted seed to eventually grow. So it's not immediate gratification where you get the likes and the money and the dopamine, but it's the right thing to do. You put your grocery cart away time and time again. All of a sudden, you form a relationship with different people in the store, and they're like, hey, I recognize that you're viewing life not just through your lenses, but through the lenses of others. And you actually care about making the world a better place.
Yeah.
And these are topics that are like sort of surface level talked about or maybe cliched on a podcast. But I'm asking you, like, how do we create tangible ownership over doing this, even when there's not a return on investment immediately, knowing that long term, it's simply the right thing to do for our own peace of mind?
I think the first place you go is in any investment strategy, whether it be money or business or whatever, it would be a no brainer for someone to say to you, Bryce, this is going to work. It's a no a money back guarantee. You try it, it's going to work. You're going to go, okay, money back guarantee? Heck yes, I'm going to try it. And that's the way this has got to be looked at. It's a money back guarantee. It costs you nothing, number one. So, having said that, I'll use a little analogy that I would like to explain it hopefully best. In order to show love to somebody else, you have to have an open hand to give them a hug. If all you've got is a fist going on, that makes it look like you want to hit them, right? So first of all, the key is to have an open hand. The open hand is meant to give. It's a giving as opposed to taking. So I want to give somebody something. And the only way I can get my hand refilled is if it remains open. Compared to my hands being like this, I can give somebody a hug, but it's not any more than just a bro hug. It's just a cursory thing. It doesn't mean a lot. But if you embrace somebody, man, with this, it's a whole different level of intimacy. It's a whole different level of trust. It's a whole different level of that relationship. And that's felt, right? That is felt to the core of the human experience. And so when you open your hand with the intent to give, I can guarantee you that if you live your life like that and you keep your hand open, you'll always have enough in that hand to give more. And if we think about it like that, I challenge people listening today, man, to just try that. And it's one person, one encounter, one thing at a time. And even today, make it a point to go find somebody to give something to and don't expect anything in return, but just keep your hands open. And you're going to find out you're never going to be empty handed.
The Trident family taught me something really important this last year, that we are all a bundle of stories, both good, bad, and everything in between. All of their cold brews remind their customers that they are part of something bigger than themselves. I start my day with the Sweet Cream Cold Brew as I am prepping my mind and body for fitness, service, coaching, and podcasting. With various locations in San Diego, they offer over 14 nitro cold brews and a variety of specialty drinks. You can find the perfect brew and pair it with one of their treats from the Keto Bakery. You can check them out over at tridentcoffee.com and use code ALLSMITH to take your coffee experience to the next level. That's so beautifully said, man. I paused to kind of let that marinate with people because I think there was a time, maybe the late 80s and 90s and early 2000s, where you said the phrase, according to this study, or my doctor said, and there was supreme trust.
Yeah.
And there was just unique, immediate buy-in. You looked at like Men's Health magazine, Men's Journal, Women's Health, and it was like, according to this study or according to this research, X, Y, and Z shows these benefits. And all of a sudden people are like, oh, the science says it, I'm going to trust it. And I think since COVID, man, people are really realizing that like correlation doesn't necessarily mean causation. And just using the phrasing and marketing manipulation of according to this study, there's a distrust. Just to give an example, like meat, for example. If I came to you and said, hey, man, are you a meat eater? And you were like, yes, but you ate grass-fed beef. You cooked it in grass-fed butter and clean kosher salts, and you weren't mixing it with any other things that were toxic and whatever. And then they came to me and they're like, hey, do you eat meat? I'm like, totally, for sure. I love meat. But I'm eating meat from a fast food source every single day. It's mixed with all kinds of other modalities associated with bread and processed food and things that there's 100 ingredients on the profile list. You and I aren't the same, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm a meat eater. So according to that study, we're in the same category. And so then it's like, oh, meat causes all of these issues associated with health. And it's like, hold on. That study was not performed with the utmost level of honesty. So you're classifying a fast food eater as the same as somebody that eats clean, grass-fed, grass-finished beef. That's not the same. And I think it's important for people to hear that distinction and understand that, like, not all medicine is the same. Not all restaurants are the same. Not all doctors are the same. Not all lawyers are the same. Not all personal trainers or fitness coaches are the same. You have to better understand through unique, inquisitive questions. You have to be more curious than judgmental. And then over the course of time, better understand that, like, the phrasing trust the science is completely inappropriate, because the science is surface level bullshit, as you and I both know. And the science should be really specific and not as cryptic, so that people can have a true understanding. But here's the thing, a true understanding is not great for marketing. So then it doesn't lead to as much profit. And I'm curious your thoughts here, because I feel like this is something that sways its way into your space frequently.
It probably can, but in our space, my wife and I are kind of the antithesis of the conventional thought process regarding science. For example, I think that curiosity or asking questions is what heals the human. And I encourage people to ask questions every day. With science, if it's looked at the way it's supposed to look at, science is self-correct, meaning that science is what we have left over, Bryce, once we've questioned and knocked holes in what we think we know is true. And once we have what we left over, we still question that. And it's always a process of trying to disprove what we think we know, realizing we don't know everything. And to me, that's where wisdom takes precedence over science, because science without wisdom is just information and knowledge. It means nothing. And like you said, that's how it gets misinterpreted. And I'm here to tell people that studies today that we cite are mostly full of all kinds of bias, inaccuracies, inferences, and associations. And as you correctly said, association doesn't equal causation. And a lot of times we have this pseudoscience that people will say something, they'll say, well, all these testimonials based on anecdotal evidence, these observed testimonials, you can't knock a hole in there, so therefore it's got to be true. So there's no um, evidence of absence. We can't prove that that's wrong, but the absence of evidence doesn't make it right. So it's both sides of this that is so screwed up. And so I look at what I know to be true right now, and I'm fully comfortable with knowing that I don't know everything. But I, like everybody else that I deal with on a daily basis, am on the pursuit of what I believe to be truth. And I'm going to keep asking questions of myself and everybody else so that I can, with them and with the partnership we have with people, do a better job of finding out what works for that human and what makes them their greatest life and the greatest chance of increased health span. Not so much lifespan, but health span. And if that means more longevity, so be it. But people need to know these studies, and there are millions of studies out there they're based upon a lot of bias, and some of the peer-reviewed things are nothing more than paid guns or paid hired hands to sign up on something just because it's their job without reading it. I'll give you one example of this that you kind of mentioned in a roundabout way. You know, we all know that healthy food is good for us, right? But are there any studies that prove that? Well, there's not, and there can't be, because the only way to really do that would be to find 1,000, maybe 2,000 volunteers for a study and take them to an island somewhere and sequester them, put them in rooms, watch over them with cameras every walking hour, test their blood work beforehand. One group McDonald's French fries and hamburgers every day, 3 times a day, and the other group perhaps maybe grass-fed, grass-finished meat with a salad, you know. And you're going to find out that groups of fed stuff we know is bad is they're going to have worse health outcomes. But who's going to do that stuff? Fund it. Nobody, because that study upend our entire system, all of it. And so we're stuck in a place where you're not really going to get studies anymore. We need to accept that idea and go back to principles. Principles should be the preeminent thing we follow. Eating food that in its original package without chemical processing seems reasonable. Drinking water that has less chemicals in it seems reasonable. Moving every day seems reasonable. And going to bed at a decent hour and getting up and getting outside is probably reasonable as well. So all these things, you know, can see it was a long answer to a short question, but we really need to know what we're doing and why. And then always question what we think we know.
Yeah, that's so perfect because one of my favorite philosophies on life is that simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. And I was having a conversation with somebody the other day and they're like, "Hey, why is gold so valuable?" And it's because it's not consistently available. And when you think about what a lot of science is doing now, it's not really trying to give you honest information. It's trying to give you painted information that is attention gathering for marketing. Because if I say to you, go to sleep at a decent hour, try to get 8 hours a night, get off your screen time an hour before bed, in your brain, your perception is that's free. I can do that. That seems too easy. And you and I both know that the compliance is actually the science. If I do that thing consistently over the course of time, I'm not only going to minimize blue light, which is artificial, and I'm going to sync better with my circadian rhythm, but I'm going to get more rest. Autophagy is going to set in, so I'm going to get more healing and removal of toxicity. My free radicals are going to minimize. I'm going to have less joint pain, elevated mood, more brain clarity. But Dr. Mark, that's free. I don't want to do that. I want to pay for something. Why should I go move and get natural sunlight and eat well when I can just take Ozempic? And there is a marketing strategy that has infiltrated the human mind to move them away from primal culture because primal culture seems too easy. Why should I pay this coach to have me sauna and cold plunge and connect and move and eat real food when I can just go to this group class 3 days a week? I can smash myself with cortisol and intensity, and I can look good in the pictures and get a free shirt every now and then. But it's not real. It's REEL in the sense that you get the content and the immediate dopamine on Instagram and all the other various platforms. But it's not REAL in the heart and the soul. And there's an emptiness that I feel like the world is walking around with because they're not connecting with their primal and biological instincts and grounding and feeling the sun. And there's artificial everything everywhere as far as Bill Gates' appeal, the cloud seeding that we're seeing with the sun, the microplastics and anything and everything. And so rather than me just like word vomiting all of the problems, I'm trying, like you, to steer people towards just becoming more primal and reading the book, The Primal Blueprint from Mark Sisson. who I think he laid out a great foundation and the ancestral laws of living, and really looking at the comparison between um, Grok and what did he call his prototypical caveman? It's like Krog, the exact opposite, which is just like the person that's abusing pharmaceuticals and doing all kinds of bad things. And I'm curious your thoughts here. You know, that was a little bit of a rant from me, but because it seems free, nobody's creating compliance around it.
Well, we've been trained that we need to go to the doctor to find a pill for our ill when the cure for our ill is right in front of us. We hold it. It's in nature. It's found there. And keep in mind, we're not born with any medication deficiencies, but yet we think we have to have a medication to get well. We see studies, as you mentioned, that are based upon this sick care model because you cannot test what it means to stay well. You're a statistic when you're sick, but you're not mentioned when you're well. It's interesting how that works. So the best way to switch that paradigm in the way we think is to start it in our own lives, our own families, our own relationships. And again, as I stated earlier, we have 25,000 people we deal with around the country and the globe. And with that said, this is the kind of conversations we have with them. I want them to have the best life and realize they hold it really right in their hands. They hold the ability right here. And everything is right here for you. It doesn't need to be complicated. I think the greatest leaders that we have in our world don't speak a principle, but they live it in front of you. And that living it is leading it. And so the leadership principles my wife and I try to emulate is just, I'm never going to ask you to do anything that I'm not doing myself. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to ask you to take anything that I haven't taken or am taking, or do anything that I'm not doing or can do. And I think that demonstrative leadership is probably what we need as part of the solution to change this thing, because we are so far off right now. Health is not that complicated. There's a lot of things that we have at our fingertips that can help us, but we're not told they're there. I look at the earth, man, you've got all kinds of cool stuff here on the earth that we have at our fingertips. Other countries use stuff. We don't. Why? Because we're one of two countries in the world that allow big pharma to invest in politicians and invest in media. What is that? What a bad idea. And so I think the change results in what we do with this, is what we do with this information we're talking about today, how we use that for inspiration and then action behind it.
I like that a lot. The other thing that's so interesting to me is the the goal that you're pursuing, or the outcome that you desire, is in the work that you're avoiding. And oftentimes we want to take a pill for immediacy.
Mm,
But if you relate that to the things that really matter, whether that's a relationship, like a fast relationship, or fast money, or something fast, usually you're like, man, this raises my eyebrows. This doesn't pass my smell test. Like something here seems too good to be true, and I can't see it right now, but eventually I think I'm going to see it.
yeah.
And health is kind of that way. It's like, who are you when nobody's watching? Are you consistently doing the next right thing? But the human mind in modern day marketing is conditioned to think, hey, what can I get away with?
Yeah.
What's the fast fix? If I do these bad choices over here, I can outweigh those bad choices with, some of these little products over here. And, I want the ideology of MVD, minimal viable dose. I'm going to do the least work to get the maximal benefit. And that might work until it doesn't work anymore.
That's right.
And what I'm curious about, as far as like a marketing strategy so that you guys have the opportunity to love and support more people, is how do you create buy-in by telling people they're going to work more? and not necessarily work harder, but work smarter and do things that, like you said, were free and consistently available. But what I push up against in the realm of preventative medicine is, how do you make this easier for me? You're not an app. Like, you have to go to a physical location and I have to do work and I have to drive there, and there is skin in the game. There's contribution. There's all kinds of things that seemingly feel uncomfortable. I'd rather just log into my Peloton app and check the box and, get my heart rate up and sweat and mistake activity for production. And then all of a sudden I feel good about myself. But then when I go to the doctor, my health biomarkers don't change, but I feel good. So I'm going to disregard the metrics and I'm going to lean towards emotion, which sometimes is a skewed principle for sure. What do you and your wife do in your naturopathic business to help people better understand the reality of what's going on rather than just this box checking convenient culture?
When someone deals with us the first time, I create as best we can the concept of vision, and they're going to help me do it. I want them to create a vision for what they want their life to look like. And I'm specific. Tell me what your body comp's going to be. Tell me what you're doing. Tell me, are you going to be spent, visiting the doctor once a year, or is it going to be someone you haven't seen in a long, long time? Are you going to be able to travel? Are you going to feel good? Are you going to have energy? Are you going to be able to sleep? Yada, yada, yada. And I asked them to create that vision. And once they get that vision created, they're verbalizing it to us, and I'm taking notes. And then I ask them, all right, let's work backward. What's it going to take to get there? And I want you to have that vision 10x, 20x. I want you to have more than that. And then I'll return with a question. How would you feel about that? If you could have that right now and that was a reality, how would that change your life? And I've never had anybody yet tell me it would change their life for the worst. They've always said, man, that would be awesome. Yes, I'm in, sign me up. So we start right there. And then I go backwards and I say, all right, we're going to create a plan to get you there and beyond. And whatever you spend here is going to be minimal in return for that opportunity you have. This is going to make the stock market look stupid as far as historical performance. And you're going to have a great return on your investment. And then we set a plan. And by then, the buy-in is already there, because when a person that comes in here has that success, they're going to talk about it. So most of our clientele is based on referrals from someone that has had success. So it becomes this, people want to tell good things as much as they want to tell bad things. They like to share gossip, though we need to watch that because that's never healthy. But they will also share about health successes if given the opportunity, because people do like to talk about self. So I think if you do it like that, and we've done that like that for a number of years, starting off with vision and working backwards, getting buy-in from their own vision, their own story. The buy-in from the front side becomes relatively small, and they're like, well, I can do that. Is that what it's going to take me to get there? Yes. And they will get there. We have really good success rates with that business strategy of getting to buy-in.
What I've heard before is, almost as important as what you want is what you don't want. And when you're communicating with these people, do you start with taking an analysis of, like, what are you currently doing and what's working versus what's not working? Or do you jump into, like you just described, hey, what's your vision? And then work specifically on that, because that seemingly is progressive and moving forward, and it's not revisiting or ruminating in the past. But I am curious, like, as far as like a patient intake form or a formal first conversation, are you trying to understand like what it is that they're doing? Because usually people come in with a preconceived notion of, like, Dr. Mark, I did this thing 20 years ago and it worked really well for me. And I lost all this weight and it was the best time of my life. And they romanticized it. They didn't realize how difficult it was to be consistent, the relationships that shifted based on, them shifting, and people being like, oh, you changed. You're not the same anymore. But they romanticize the outcome. So then they forget the hard work of the in between. They kind of give you immediate pushback at the beginning of, like, why should I listen to you? And you pause and you go, you came to me for a reason. What you're doing isn't working. but it worked at one point. So you're ruminating and you're on just this cyclical treadmill of like, oh, I need to do that again because it worked. How do you tinker with human psychology to help them understand that what worked maybe isn't what's going to work now?
You have to get them out of the past before they get in the future. And so I try to start by springboarding them or giving them a push out in the future. It's almost like giving somebody a push start on a bicycle, teaching them how to ride and holding on to that thing, that holding on to their waist or the handlebar in the back of that seat, just teaching them how to ride again. So I'm pushing them forward because I want them to verbalize at first a positive experience. I want them to dream again, to have the wonder of hope, the wonder of awe, the wonder of possibility. I want them to see that. And then we come backwards. And then, like in our symptom questionnaire, I'll say, all right, let's go back and let's look at what you're doing now. Take me through a typical day of your activities, your food. What do you do? How is that? I look at their symptoms and I say, how long have you felt like this? And so I try to get a timeline of when things started to go off course. And then I go back and a lot of times it's like one of the goals I have is maybe I want to lose weight or whatever. And then I'll say, well, what last time you were under 130 for a lady or something like that? And they'll say, well, that was 10 years ago. Then I'll ask the question, well, what was your life like back then? What was working for you? And then I'll go right on the pathway you just talked about. So I get all that in there, but I start off with the positive thing at first because what I don't want to see happen is they come in and they start spinning around the idea of what's wrong with them first. If they do that, it's going to be an unproductive conversation and they're continuing to live in this and it becomes their identity. And to that point, there's so many people that identify with sickness. I am, and therefore I can't, or therefore I can't because of this. And so I don't want them to identify with sickness. I don't even let them speak like that. They'll come in and say, well, I have type 2 diabetes. I'll stop them right there and say, hold on. That's not what we say in this office. Repeat after me. I'm living a life conducive with healthy blood sugar. We don't allow them to own that. And it's that important, and if you can work things in that order from the psychology standpoint, you can get the human mind going towards possibility again, as opposed to just this ruminating on the past failures or past pain.
The story holding most of us back, or the thing holding most of us back, is the story that we tell ourselves.
Yes.
And I don't think it's purposeful irresponsibility, but I think so many doctors with credentials are trying to put people in a box so they can better understand.
Yeah.
And they
Yeah.
see a list of symptoms and they go, "Oh, you're this. Here's how I can treat that." And I think it's based on it's a scalable model of medicine and education around trying to make the human mind understand, rather than realizing that like all of us probably fall on a spectrum based on general physiology. Low blood sugar, I'm probably going to be a little bit more irritable and moody and fatigued. High blood sugar, I'm going to be over energized and maybe some sort of ADD and maybe have some anxiety. But I don't know, I'm curious your thoughts there, because modern medicine is like chemical imbalance, labeling. Tell somebody they are depressive or anxious or ADD or ADHD, and then these people walk around, previously as young, light individuals with a pep in their step, maybe feeling a little bit different, but then all of a sudden they get this diagnosis and they're like, yes, I better understand myself. But then it's like a fucking backpack that they walk around with, and everywhere they go, everybody has to know, like, oh yeah, I'm this. And I don't view that as like judgmental on my end. I'm like, interesting, because I know you as your name. I don't know you as your title from work. I don't know you as to what you were diagnosed with. I know you as a human being. And human beings are malleable, which means they can change for the worst or they can change for the best. But creating that optimism in the human mind when they've been categorized a certain way by a well respected and trusted individuals is challenging and difficult.
In our world here, and I'm in the offices right now, I don't We don't even like going on the pathway of being known as master diagnosticians. And I say that for this reason because ultimately, if I look hard enough at anybody, I'm going to find something wrong. And if I look for something wrong and I find it, as I stated earlier, I'm going to miss everything was right. We don't use the diagnosis system here in our offices to get things paid for. And therein lies the problem. The system needs a diagnosis to get things paid for. I don't even want to go there with people. Now, do we come up with concepts and ideas of what conditions people may be in of underperformance or under functioning of systems? Let's say it like that. Because a diagnosis tends to be more concrete. You have this, whereas an analysis is different. Right now, you're not functioning well in this area, and here's how we're going to fix it. It's a different way to verbalize it. And because we don't focus on diagnosis of what's wrong, and because we focus on what is right, we see people walk in here and walk out of here, and they don't talk about the excuses that hold them back. They don't have an ID card with a diagnosis on it. They get their real identity back. When I look at the human experience, man, I mean, I am a naturopathic doctor, yes, but my name is Mark, damn it, and that's who I am, and I want people to see me that way. And I know you're the same, that I can tell, so it's really about bringing people's world back, the identity of who they are, instead of the identity of the system. The system is not going to work. It's not set up to work. It's not going to change. As much as I appreciate, RFK et al. Having conversations, if we're still depending on the federal government to change stuff, to make things easier for us, we've already missed the boat. It's up to us as individual people to take charge of our health. And the best I can hope the federal government does at this point, in my opinion, shut off big pharma's advertising to our people and provide educational resources for us so we can have a choice on what we're going to do and giving us informed consent.
I like the concept of informed consent. I have so many things that got unlocked in what you just said that I want to like word vomit and explore with you. But I definitely want to touch on your shirt for a second because hope is the most powerful prescription that you can write. And re-identifying people and helping them get back to their true identity, their name, their humanness, and remove their labels, their title, and the false perception of reality that's placed when they start getting exposure to the real world and big pharma. It's painful, man.
Hmm.
Painful when all these things take place and you don't see a way out, and all of a sudden you're operating in a world with foggy lenses. You can't really see the path forward because so many quote unquote experts are diagnosing and telling you you're this or you're that, and eventually you start to believe it because of this credentialism. And it takes conversations like this for people to realize that we're all in this together. We're all trying to figure it out. But there's this fake bravado that comes from podcasts, that comes from media, social media, of people speaking with so much confidence and muchísimo that creates buy-in from people that are scrolling through like, oh, this dude, he's got a lot of followers. He's got this reputability. He's got these credentials. He's been on these different shows. Oh, I should listen to him. And then somebody else is, storytelling like we are today. And they're just like, oh, those people, they're talking out of their ass. Like they don't have the reputability. How do people kind of create a filtration system as to like what to believe versus what not to believe? Because I remember when my mom was alive, like she was so overly conflicted because she wanted to trust the doctors and the experts and the studies. But then when she tried certain things, those things worked better. But then she was just distrusting of those things because it wasn't what was pushed by like the food pyramid and by the experts that she was seeing online and on the news. And so it becomes this this clusterfuck of a headspace where it's like trial and error, and you want to trust your heart's, center and your intuition, but like there's a friction point where like that's fighting with what the profitable media experts are saying, that creates this muckiness in the headspace and this standstill as to like, what do I do? How do I figure a path forward? And then you just eventually become the pessimist that like, you know what, fuck it. It's all bad for me. Microplastics are everywhere. There's heavy metals everywhere. I want to go to school and I want to socialize. So screw it. I'm just going to get these vaccines, and I just want to have a path forward that doesn't carry a lot of tension. And, I don't want to answer the questions and have the hard, difficult conversations. So I'm just going to comply because it's easier that way. That's not the path forward, but that's what a lot of people do because they're afraid of the tension and the friction and the challenge that's going to come. I mean, I have friends that who didn't want to vaccinate their kids, and their kids just got kicked out of school. Now they have to figure out monetarily like how to tutor them, how to have childcare when they're at work, like how to do all this onslaught of things because they're simply like, you know what, I don't trust the vaccines. I'm seeing the links to autism. I'm seeing the mercury. I'm seeing the aluminum. I'm seeing the heavy metals. But if you don't comply in a country that seemingly feels like freedom, now you can't attend said school. And so, I mean, there's a lot to unpack there, but I'm curious your thoughts. Like, how do we create some sort of like transparent path forward? You said those four principles earlier that I think are a great start. But for people that are maybe in that baby boomer generation that are used to trusting the news and trusting doctors, how do they trust now? Free is the way to be. Life beats us up a bit and causes some bumps and bruises, but that doesn't mean we have to stay on the sidelines. This is why we've partnered with Kinyan Labs. Get back to doing what you love with this incredible portable device designed to get you back in the game. Kinyan is on a mission to move people from pain to possible with their top-rated red light therapy and laser solution, which tackles inflammation along with muscle and joint pain quickly and effectively. What I love is that it's portable and rechargeable, making it easy to actually incorporate into my everyday life consistently. It's small and lightweight, so you can throw it in your gym bag or work bag or even an overnighter. Kinyan's lasers and LED combo make this cutting-edge device extremely versatile for use with general aches and pains, as well as chronic back pain, arthritis, post-surgery recovery, endometriosis, and more. This has been an amazing tool keeping my elbows and knees pain-free for pressing, pulling, and squatting in the gym. Great tools like the Move Plus give me the freedom and flexibility to continue living life on my terms without limitations. There are a lot of reasons why over 15,000 people are using this device and rating it 4.7 stars and above. Head on over to kinyan.io and use code ALLSMITH at checkout to begin your pain-free journey.
Well, you can't. Specifically, COVID was, in a sense, one of the greatest gifts that we've had to humanity in quite some time, because it turned the cruise ship upside down of what we thought was true. And it gave us a chance to revisit that again. And so there's a couple things people need to know about influencers out there. Influencers does not always create to excellence. There's something to be said about credentialed people. Credentials do not always equate to correctness. There's a line out there you need to find. It's a line where people that are truly leading the way towards this pursuit of excellence, this pursuit of correctness, that they realize they haven't found it yet. And it's found in leadership. And the world is lacking leaders today, Bryce. It really is. And I got news for you out there. If you're a parent that's got had your kids kicked out of school because of a system that was not set up on choice, it was set up on really domination and manipulation. Perhaps some would say even communism, borderline, and I can see that as well. You're a leader right now, and leadership is lonely. But look around, you're going to find people that are standing out there with you. The group is smaller, but they're more powerful. And that's my encouragement for people to look for people out there that are in that leadership group that are paving the way out there, what seemingly is a lonely road, but it's a road that people need to walk on. Because what we were doing and what we are doing right now is not working. And I don't want to continue to prove Einstein was the genius that he was by doing the same things over and over again and getting the same results, but expecting something different. So we have opportunities out there right now, thankfully, because of COVID, because there is more information out there. There is more people out there that have questioned the narrative. And our job is to not back down. Our job is to push even harder, to step on the gas pedal and keep asking questions and never stop as long as we live.
Yeah, I like that. What are your thoughts on ownership and accountability associated with COVID, with Dr. Fauci, with a lot of the Democratic Party really pushing this, leaning in towards a lot of celebrities and professional athletes. And I'm a big believer, like if you want to find the truth, you follow the money. And you saw the stocks of Pfizer and Johnson and some of the others really rise during COVID. But now there's not an issued apology. We're seeing myocarditis. We're seeing the rise in heart issues. We're seeing the vaccine, talked about a little bit, but it's almost swept under the rug a little bit of like, hey, we were trying to get this thing out there, but there's no ownership around like, hey, these things that were labeled negatively as conspiracy theories, like it originated from a lab in Wuhan. Well, now we know that to be true. It's not speculation. It's not conspiracy anymore. We saw the conversation around ivermectin, and then we later understood, like, oh wow, that's a drug that's used around the world often for parasites. And now we're seeing things associated with heavy metal detoxification and the mRNA. They're calling it long COVID, but the challenges associated with the mRNA issues in people. But there's no ownership. There's never like, oh, I thought those things were safe and the efficacy was there, and now like I'm really sorry because I thought I was doing something good. I've not heard that. I know Tucker Carlson's talking about it. Candace Owens is talking about it. And I'm genuinely curious as like an outsider looking in, like I was very strong around something about this doesn't pass my smell test. If there is a better argument at some point, I'll potentially pursue compliance. But in the short term, I'm going to rely on what feels good in my heart center and continue living a primal life, treating people appropriately, having honest conversations, and trying to like open Pandora's box on truth, not on manipulation. But what I'm curious about in relation to COVID is like, we're seeing truth float to the surface as far as this thing is not safe. It's dangerous. Why do you think there's no ownership and accountability taken there, or at the very least, apologies issued?
There's several reasons. I can go back to the time that um, we started hearing about COVID-19, and I had the fortunate or unfortunate occurrence to be able to communicate with some of the people who were making decisions at that time. And obviously, I'm not going to put them on the spot or anything like that, but I did say to them that I thought rushing into this thing and later to be named Operation Warp Speed was one of the worst decisions we could ever make as a nation, as a country, as a world. And I really believe that because I know enough about genetics to know, having studied for a number of years, that the genes have changed 2% in 10,000 years. So if that's true, and no one's going to agree with that, as far as what we know to be true, is then why are we not taking the genes, trying to work back to create proteins that are created from the gene, not knowing full well what they're going to do in the long term, but only you think they might do it short term. A very short-sighted, juvenile way to look at things, in my opinion. But political pressure and probably desire to please people and fear mongering got the better of those parts, and they did it anyway. And also briefly at that point in time about how come America was so unhealthy, we were still subsidizing things that make America sick. The government's still giving food, giving money to products in wheat, soy, dairy, corn, sugar, and processed foods that are killing people. And that never made. And I asked the question, why are you doing to have an unhealthy population? Wouldn't it be a better world to say we have a healthy population and not worried about COVID? Let's take our chances with a natural immune system that was not born with a vaccine deficient. But of course, arguments on deaf ears.
I'm glad you mentioned agriculture because that's something that I heard Mark Sisson talk about back in the day,
Yep,
which
yep,
was, you didn't see a lot of these issues until there was mass production
that's
and you
true. It's true.
saw, the growth of wheat, corn, soy, specifically, along with, the what came later, which is oats and all these things that are full of gluten and the additives that are now put into food. I mean, we've seen the glyphosate.
Right, right.
We've seen Bill Gates' appeal that's now on lots of fruits and vegetables, which the social perception to the human eye is, oh yeah, they're just spraying water to maintain the freshness and the vibrance of the vegetable and the fruit. But in reality, it's to prolong shelf life and it's adding chemicals into the body. They're known to be cancer causing. And then these very same companies are creating the cancer treatments. And so it's like you're on both sides. You're causing the cancer and you're helping profit and cure it. If you're aware of that, and I hope the people listening are becoming aware of that, something about that feels really wrong. You're marketing to show the appeal of the visual appeal of looking at a fruit and vegetable that has a lot of color and texture to it, and maybe you palpate it and it feels like it's going to be nourishing to the body. That's fucking manipulation, because then you consume it and you don't even realize. I mean, maybe there's a psychosomatic component where you feel like it's good for you, not knowing the chemicals that are getting into the system, that like now you're like, whoa, like why am I experiencing these symptoms? I thought that I was doing everything right.
Well, I think there's a couple things to think about here. We have the same thing going on right now with the government pharmaceutical policymakers, right, and insurance companies, because you got the government subsidizing poor foods that create illness, that drive the medication industry. The big pharma is lobbying the government to make certain uh, directive policies, and so you got all this going on, and it's twisted. You're profiting off of sickness. You're creating the problem and then profiting off the problem. Exactly what you're saying, to your point about accountability, there are several things that are standing in the way of that right now. One is humility and honesty. And you don't. When's the last time you heard a politician say, "I'm sorry" or "I was wrong"? You don't hear that. All you do is hear them talk in circles to justify away. And I'm talking both Republican and Democrats in that circle. But it's not right. And every one of them. I've heard people, and it just. And I have relationships with some of these people, Bryce. But it irks me to no end that their ethics reports, they take money from Pfizer over here and they act like there's some tough guy trying to fight for the people. And I'm like, no, you're not. Stop taking money from Pfizer, and then I'll respect what you're saying. Otherwise, you look like a con job. You're a hypocrite, and that's exactly what that is. And so I think the accountability measure lies in the idea, and you mentioned Dr. Fauci. So here's a guy that was put up front, and obviously we know there was conflict of interest there that has been clearly, clearly outlined. But at the same time, we've got the same Dr. Fauci wearing a presidential medal given by the current president of the United States. And I'm like, something is wrong with that. And it's like, who is going to admit wrong? And it's almost like, that old chicken game. You used to drive at your little motorcycle at somebody else and see which one would dodge first. These guys aren't dodging anything, and they keep crashing into each other, and they keep hurting everybody around because they're too prideful to admit they're wrong. And I think that right there boils down to when you're going to have accountability when people start admitting they're wrong. And I'm just waiting on that day. And I don't have a vengeful bone in my heart or a revengeful concept or hatred. But all I know is there are people in the world that have hurt people in a massive way, that have had a hand in killing millions and millions of people. And that's not okay. That's not okay by me. So we're on a mission to re-educate people to, maybe we can't fix the past, but we can darn sure fix our future. And it really begins with what we do right now, with this moment, with this time, with this information, with this podcast, with this show, with this uh, type of perhaps inspiration that people get out of it. And I think if we would just go that direction, we'll find probably more answers, because I don't have much faith right now, to be very transparent with you, that there will be accountability in this any more than just a bunch of talk. And to
Yeah.
me, talking
And
does
people
nothing.
feel like they have to be slaves to it because
Yep,
of health insurance companies. I
that's
think
right.
Brennan Bueller's done a great job of highlighting health insurance and that manipulative strategy and the fear mongering that takes place associated with your taxes. With you being in the space of naturopathic medicine, have you found out ways to connect with health insurance? Are you a cash only business? What do you think people can do other than a HSA, a health savings account, for people to budget appropriately, get the true honest care that they need, but also not be penalized on their taxes?
I think HSAs are brilliant. We are all cash. HSAs or FSAs work perfect with us, with everything. Probably because of the business name we have, the Functional Medical Institute. That probably helps a little bit, but we've not been turned down that in any way, shape, or form. So I think that's part of the answer. The second point of that, Bryce, is I tell people that I want to do my best so that they can keep their deductibles in their pockets. In other words, I want your deductibles to become an investment portfolio that you use in the way you want. Because if you don't keep those in your pocket, they're going to be exorbitantly taxed from the insurance company. You go in there and get a $50 lab, and they're going to bill your insurance company $500, and your deductible is not met, so you're going to pay $500 for a $50 lab. That's stupid, right? So
I don't know what the exact value is, but like I do IVs and maintain hydration and try to get different forms of vitamin IVs from my naturopath out here.
yeah,
It's crazy how much traditional hospitals charge for basic saline. That's like, dude, it's like less than $10. But it's like you are charged hundreds of dollars for a basic IV. I'm like jaw dropped by it.
no, the IV,
Band-Aid is hundreds of dollars.
yeah, IVs from a hard cost standpoint, if you get like a Myers with a bag of saline, whether it be 500 or 1,000, you're looking at probably a hard cost of $75 total. That's it. And there's obviously there's costs for the lines and needles and all that stuff, but they're not hundreds of dollars, just a few pennies, right? And I think that another thing people can and should do is look for a lot of these co-op um, health share networks. And if you're smart about this and maintain your health, you use what money you saved from premiums from a traditional sick care model insurance program. You save that money and put it in an account and be very disciplined about that. And then use your smaller premiums for the health sharing accounts. And then you can pay your expenses, and your doctor, the health sharing account, can write a letter to them and get that reimbursed. That's the best way to go about it, in my opinion. I hope more programs like that come about, uh, versus more manipulation by the current insurance system, which says we'll take care of your wellness exam, full well knowing that the wellness exam doesn't tell you anything, and it doesn't even certainly tell you if you're well or not.
Well, also just to push back about what you're saying right now, look how hard you now have to sell being a finance expert when in reality you're a naturopathic doctor that
Yeah,
cares about the health and well-being of people. But now you're having to be an insurance broker, you're having to be a finance expert, and you're
yep.
having to find ways to sell and create buy-in around a model that's broken, as opposed to on the other side, you can't even get access to your doctor. They're hidden behind the front desk associate, the automated, program that they have in order to communicate with the organization that he or she works for. They don't have to deal with that at all. Like, yeah, they have challenges, medical malpractice. They probably have challenges to see a certain number of patients within a day. They get challenges from medical directors and owners of the hospital to make certain sales, and they have to hit certain quotas because they've got shareholders. Those
Yep.
shareholders are lighting a fire underneath their ass. Hey, if we don't have this many vaccines or this many ventilators or this many sick patients, we're not making money. Then we're going to get rid of you. We're going to shorten our staff if you don't hit those quotas.
Yeah.
But what's so difficult is just like the people, I think most people get into this industry like really caring about wanting to implement positive change. And then they become calloused within the system because they start to have kids, they start to have families, they start to get burnt out. I mean, 12 plus hour shifts. I mean, it says 12, like a 7 to 7 for most medical practitioners. But once you hit your notes, once you do things on the back end and then transport to and from, it's a 14-hour day. Then you get home and you're expected to be a husband, a wife, a father, a parent, a mother. Like, you're expected to go work out, take care of yourself, do all the, chores and necessities to maintain the household. It seems very unrealistic, but you get stuck in the system and you end up hating what you do. And you end up thinking, okay, if I don't do this, I'm going to be stuck in student debt. I don't really care about the patients that come in because I would probably argue 50% of people just make poor choices or they're coming in drunk or something, as opposed to like, real issues, which, those do happen. They exist for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like when you're in there and you're ready and available and like, I remember when I used to work in physical therapy, like I got burnt out because people just wanted to reap benefits from car accidents. They didn't actually want to get better. They just wanted to like sit there and do ultrasound and some sort of massage so they could like show their insurance company they did a thing so they could get a payout. And all these things float within the medical system that I think it takes good people. It flips a switch in their mind where they don't fucking care anymore. They just want to make the money to get back to their family and do what they really want to do. And then that just bleeds into the rest of the system.
I would agree. Especially I had a lot of people during the COVID era when it first began getting irate and at the hospital doctors, the hospitalists, and all this because they followed that protocol that seemingly and now confirmingly did not work out, and people died. I'm talking the midazolam, the ventilator, that kind of stuff. And so as we went forward, I heard people saying, well, those stupid doctors, they know better. But to your point, they went to school, they created hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt, they've got kids in college, they've got a mortgage to pay, they got a wife at home and car insurance and their own health insurance and all kinds of stuff, expenses. What are you going to do? Are you going to willingly give up your job at that point? And we think, well, that would be an easy answer. Sure, I would. But keeping in mind is they don't have access. They do have access. They didn't take time to get education for all those 12 years of school they did, 14, 16 years, etc., to study things like we're talking about. They may have gotten 2 hours of nutrition. They may have gotten a 45-minute lecture on how supplements don't work. They're dealing with sick people. So they spent, 20, 30 years, 2 or 3 decades dealing with this one mindset. And it's hard to flip that switch overnight. And so people really channel their anger probably a little with too much hostility towards that. But it was really a system error. It was a system error from a top down error. And now, to a lot of those doctors' credit, they're moving that direction out of that. And they've taken the opportunity and doing things different now. So we're seeing more people kind of come out and start their own businesses, like my wife and I have had for 15 years. And we need more. We need more. We need doctors to begin to push back and realize they're gifted people, they're talented people, they're smart, intelligent people, and the world needs their giftings, no question.
For sure. And it's honorable and courageous what you and your wife are doing. But I'll also challenge that a little bit in the sense of there's risk tolerance associated with that. There's a hope and a pray that certain patients are going to come with you to get started. So there is natural cash flow. There's, okay, I was trained in medicine. Now I need to be
Yeah.
trained in profit and loss statements and real estate and liability and contractual agreements. And I need to have a design, ideology so that I can design the space and make sure it's comfortable. Now I need to be well versed in leadership and understand how to lead my team and empower them and give them a growth trajectory so that way they want to stay with the company. And it's not just this entry level, fast turnover job that we see time and time again in small businesses. The front desk person changes every week. And you're like, I thought I saw you before. And, based on that, like that's your first touch onto a new customer. Then you think about lead generation, and it's like the list goes on and on. And when you think about the traditional education system, it's memorize these things, take the exam, and if you show compliance on the exam, we're going to give you a label of you're a good student, you're going to graduate with honors, and we're going to give you your credentials. So you're trained to memorize their shit so that way you can pass the exam, so that way you can go operate the way you want to operate. And that's great in the beginning until you realize like, oh, all I did was unlock a new level to the game and realize that there's so much more to learn. And I
Yeah.
think the master really realizes that like you just started. Now it's the school of hard knocks. It's experience, it's understanding what's out there. And you only get that by doing it, not by sitting in a classroom and learning it.
Yeah. Well said. You're not taught things that my wife and I have learned for the last 15 years doing this. You have to just learn them yourself, and OJT is the way to go. And
What does that stand for?
on the job training.
Oh yeah. Well played.
So it really is. You just have to learn your way through it, and you make a lot of mistakes along the way, and you hopefully learn more lessons earned. You don't have to repeat those darn things. And
Yeah.
that's hope. Over the course of time. But we've had to learn a lot, and you're right. Nobody teaches you that stuff. How to run a business and how to sell yourself because you come from a system that generates its own patients for you. It's a self-enclosed, self-perpetuating system that manipulates people and takes advantage of people's naivety and really profits off of sickness. And I can't think of a more despicable way to describe it, but that's exactly what it is. I'm not saying we don't need it in certain circumstances, but it's not getting us any better. As I said at the top of our time, we're the most unhealthy we've ever been right now in the history of the world. And so it's just kind of a rethinking, reshaping. And when doctors come out of that system, we've had several that came through our place to try to catch on, doctors, mid levels, et cetera, and they have a really hard time. They have a really challenging time because it takes probably 2 to 3 years to kind of get in the flow of what my wife and I do and why, because you have to unlearn some stuff. And the more you've had things hardwired in there, the more is taxing and challenging to unwire and rewire.
I
And
think what you're saying and what I'm hearing is doctors are almost trained to be step by step thinkers and just kind of like follow the list. If
yeah,
this happens, it goes to this. It's almost like a sequential psychological flow chart, and they fall in love with processes, procedures, and systems, which
yeah,
isn't a bad thing because I love James Clear's quote: like we don't rise to the level of our goals, we fall to the level of our systems. However, within that is the messy middle. It's the gray area. It's seeking to understand. It's putting the time, energy, and attention into getting to know the human. Because if you just word vomit a bunch of medical terminology and throw a pill at them, that might work in the beginning for the biased, impatient patient, but it's not really going to fix the problem. It's just going to put a painting over a hole in the wall. And so it's teaching you what you guys are doing is really critical thinking. It's taking all the different variables, maybe taking off their mask, better understanding the font that these variables are in, feeling their texture, their energy, how they're used within the landscape of the human experience for the patient, and then trying your best on the other side to write a few sentences and eventually an essay that creates a beautiful life.
I would agree with that. And that messy middle, that hard space is understanding the uniqueness of each person. And that takes time. It takes experience. It takes the ability to live. Sometimes not just as what's being said, but sometimes what is not being said. And it's what you see, what you observe. It's a process of really analyzing how to put the puzzle together. This person can beautiful picture of themselves. And every person is different, bro. Every person, there are universal truths, I would say, or principles that live are consistent across the board, but you find the uniqueness in everyone. So that's probably the art. I say the art of healing. I suppose.
Yeah. What I'm also seeing is that, and I've said this before, but like one side is just weighing more than the other. It shouldn't be that reactive medicine is more important or more profitable than preventative medicine. I think they need each other.
Yes.
The problem is preventative medicine is cheap. It's disrespected. It's seemingly free. It's like the narrative is like, I mean, from a personal training standpoint, it's like, why should I pay for that? It's like, you're literally going to pay all this money to go see a doctor for 7 minutes. That is psychological manipulation. But then you have this other person that you might see 4 to 5 days a week that knows you probably better than anybody else on the planet, knows your system, your rhythm, how you arrive, the days of the week that are the most stressful, sees what you eat, sees your relationship, sees how you move, understands your history. Holy shit. That is valuable.
Yeah.
But it's like, oh, $100 a session, that's too much. But I'm going to pay my doctor that to see me for 7 minutes because they're reputable and they got the letters after their name and society tells me that they're trustworthy. I'm jaw dropped by that, dude. Like that is hard for me. That's a hard pill for me to swallow.
Well, it is for me too. And we have to battle that. Now we've been fortunate enough over the course of time to create a value in what we do, and people don't mind paying us, and I'm not afraid anymore. I probably used to be, quite honestly, to communicate value and who we are. But
Same. I'm
li-
right there with you, man. I
it's
used to be very fearful of that. Now I just like, I draw a firm line in the
yeah,
sand
yeah,
because it needs to be reciprocative. We're on a journey together. I'm fully enrolled. You're fully enrolled.
yeah.
I'm going to hold your hand towards your peak expression. But if you're expecting me to do all the work, we're going to fail.
No, I want people to have skin in the game. You got skin in the game. It's like you might go buy season tickets or something to go watch the Clippers play or something like that if you wanted to. You're going to do your best to go to that game, whether it's snowing or raining or bad weather or tornado or what. You're going to make your best effort to go. So I want people to put some money down. I want them to have some skin in the game because I want them to have that buy-in and show up. And when they do, they're going to get blessed and rewarded handsomely for that. It's called health. It's called life. It's called hope.
I like that. What I'm hearing here is that science without love is sterile, and love without science is powerless. They need each other.
Agreed. Like that.
What are your thoughts on sugar, man? Like, back in the day, it was like sugar free, but what
Yeah.
that just translated to like chemical shitstorm. And then like salt got weaponized for like high blood pressure. But now we're seeing Element and all these different companies come out with electrolyte supplements. I know there's a lot of influencers and really smart thought leaders actually that are pushing salt. Because if you overconsume salt, typically you simply pee it out. And there's a lot of great salts out there. There's some terrible salts that are full of microplastics too. How do you kind of create a healthy diagnostic conversation of like third grade level understanding around salt and sugar?
So with salt, this from an elementary standpoint, the salt that has been found in extraordinarily high amounts in processed foods is no doubt a contributor to high blood pressure or stiffness of the vessels. But is that the major cause of the stiffness of the vessels? It's probably a conglomeration of the processed foods that create this vascular inflammation process and the stiffening, hardening of the vessels as per, plaque buildup and calcium deposition, right? So that creates that stiffness in the vessels. So I
So,
think,
so to create some transparency there, just for my mind, it's almost similar to that meat study that I shared, which
yeah,
is meat got demonized, but in reality, it was the processed food around the meat that was causing the issues. Salt gets demonized because it serves as a preservative, but it's not the salt in isolation, it's everything else. And
yeah.
if you look at the ingredient profile, it's typically names you can't pronounce. And
Hmm.
it's a very long ingredient list that you're like, whoa, I don't know what any of this is, but it tastes good.
No, I use electrolytes daily myself. I use them pre-workout, and I find that you have to have electrolytes in balance because those are going to help, charge this thing called the heart. We have to have them. So, and plus, the harder you work, the more you sweat, the more you need, and that's why athletes are always refueling with electrolytes, even via IV bags, right? So you got all that going on, and with sugars, natural sugars never were the problem. They never were a problem at all. It was these artificial sugars that became the problem. Refined sugar became the problem. You look at like the natural sugars that are found in fruits, fructose, for example. Is that a bad thing? No, because it's found in fruit. But what if you take it out and combine it with some kind of processing method to make sucrose or sucralose? Well, it becomes something bad. And so it's not that the sugars or the salts were the bad things. It was their uh, modifications and then applications in all this processed foods that created the negative outcomes of those.
Yeah. I think that creates a little bit of like a unmasking of the two for people to kind of hold on to and toss into their back pocket.
Yep.
Something I'm curious about and how you create psychology relationships with people is that so many people are like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I can't make it. I have to work."
Hmm.
And they make these promises and create expectations around being on time for work, paying their bills on time. These things that I mean, fear is a great motivator. If you don't pay this thing, you're going to be penalized. You'll have a late fee. But what stands out is like people make these promises to the external world, but then they don't keep the promises to themselves. Hey, I'm going to eat this way, or I'm going to go to sleep at this time, or when I'm around that person, it doesn't fill my cup. It's usually draining. And I feel like taking care of your body it's a form of respect that you owe yourself. But most people seemingly cut that corner in pursuit of whatever the justification is for a job or for their perception in reality.
Well, I think that the idea goes like this, and it goes back to I'll use a biblical scripture: love your neighbor as yourself. Right? Just that simple truth. Or to love other people. Nobody would argue with that. That's always a good thing to do. It's always good to love other people and do things for them. We talked about that earlier. But as yourself, how do we do that? Because the more we learn to love ourselves and give ourselves respect and dignity of love and honor, the more we're able to give. So the more you give yourself, the more time and effort, attention with your, you know, just all that you have, the more you can dig that well and you can give to other people. And that's kind of the way we look at that. I want to make sure that I give myself time. I get up every day in the morning and I kind of have a routine that I go through. Um, I will pray and I'll meditate and I kind of get my mind ready. Then I go to the gym and I don't listen to really hard headbanger stuff. I'm listening to that was pretty soothing actually, when I'm exercising, but I have a plan. And my plan is meant to get me prepared for what I'm going to do that day. And if I don't do it like that, I find that I'm not able to give as effectively during the day. So giving self some time, respect, and love, I think is critical because then you're able to really fulfill what we're supposed to do, which is live a life that's about giving to our fellow man, I suppose.
Everybody wants the view. but nobody wants to climb.
Mm-hmm.
When you think about gaining muscle, I mean, it's that famous quote: "Everybody want to be strong, but nobody want to lift no damn heavy ass weights." And then you think about like losing weight, and you think about the discipline and the food, the sleep, the consistency of movement. The view is freaking awesome. Everybody loves that outcome. It creates a great metaphor and psychological motivation. But most of life is actually in the mundane. I mean, you think about marriage to your wife. It's not the Instagram pictures of all these different moments in time. It's waking up next to each other when she's pulling the blankets and you're freezing, or vice versa. It's cleaning the bathroom and taking the trash out and doing the dishes and powwowing with each other before and after work and taking the dog out. And it's the nuance. That's the stuff that makes up the majority of time. And when you look at that as just like a telltale of your true character and why your life is the way it is, I mean, it's just a matter of probability, where you spend the majority of your time and how you think, and the choices that you make. So when you think about that quote, everybody wants the view, but no one wants to climb. What are your thoughts?
I think that, we get 1,440 minutes a day, and I can't get a refund on the time I spend. So, like, the daytime for me is using those minutes to keep on climbing, man. Keep on climbing every minute to make it a better thing, to make it a stepping stone for the next moment, the next time, the next encounter, the next person, the next endeavor I have. At the end of the day, I look back on it, and I want to look back at it with satisfaction and contentment to know that I did my best. Then if I wake up the next day, I'll do it again. And I'll start climbing back up the ladder that 1,440 minutes. And I don't want to have places and times where I let that down because I know it's a sure gift. So it's a pleasure to climb. It's a pleasure to live. It's a blessing, and I don't want to blow it.
I like that. We started ALLSMITH at the conclusion of losing both my parents to terminal cancer. So I couldn't help but start thinking at that moment about some of my own mortality and what my life's decisions up until now can impact the present, but also the future. And I'm curious your thoughts about how urgency and health and the concept of like acting before it's too late can change someone's trajectory and their current life choices. Because scarcity is a function of like quantity. I think, I have more or less time, and urgency is a function of time. I'm going to behave this way because I don't have as much time left.
Ben Franklin said an ounce of prevention worth a pound of cure. And I look at it like that with health. I'm going to spend my time in a preventive mode so that I can avoid having to be cured from disease processes. I don't mind spending $5,000 on my health when it comes to $5,000 to spend a night in the hospital. I don't mind spending $5,000 on my health when I know I can go down and spend a few days at the Ritz Carlton somewhere in a nice place. So it's all about perspective. Now, granted, you can't really test and quantify health because it's not measured that way. But if we could avoid surgeries, avoid processes of sickness, avoid procedures, knowing full well that a dollar amount, we would. We'd rather not go through those things because of the rehab and the recovery and all that. So that's kind of how I approach it with the people we deal with, and frankly, in my own life as well.
Yeah, and I think modern day too, based on what you just said, like everybody is using data trackers now. Everybody's got a Garmin, a Whoop, an Aura Ring, some sort of Fitbit. Steps seem to be something that people are tracking a lot.
Yeah.
I personally like the Whoop the best. I think the HRV is like a really cool score. I've seen a lot of friends that they found out their wives were pregnant based on seeing some of the metrics
Hmm.
on a Whoop, which I thought was rad.
Wow.
But I stopped wearing all of them because I started getting my headspace skewed based on the numbers. And I started realizing that everything that's measured doesn't always count. and everything that counts isn't always measured.
That's
And
right.
on paper, 5 years ago, when I'm squatting 400 pounds and snatching 200 something pounds and clean and jerking 300 something pounds and all kinds of gymnastics, and on paper, I looked really fit. But then I'd go to like Joshua Tree to hike, and like I could barely like have the mobility to like boulder rocks because I was so sore, had so much joint pain. I'd be tossing and turning all night in my sleep and never really had peace. My testosterone was like mediocre at best based on overtraining and chronic inflammation.
Hmm.
My relationships, I put so much energy in the gym that I had a little bit of fitness, but like I felt like fitness really had me. So it goes back to what you said around like this dosage environment and understanding what you said where we started the conversation today, which is what do you want? What does a beautiful life look like for you? Let's paint that picture and let's work backwards from that. And I think that's a really great way to operate within the health and wellness system. But how did you get to that? Was there a moment in your doctor education where you eventually just, flipped the table psychologically and where you're just like, I'm tired of this. I'm going to take the leap. I'm going to do something different. And you happen to meet your partner in crime, which you and I both know the most important decision you make in your life is your life partner because they're your co-founder, man, in
Yep.
everything that you do. How did you make the choice to pursue naturopathic medicine in a system that seemingly is bought into reactive medicine?
Mine probably began in my time as a police officer, right? Seeing people die and realizing that, life is short, sudden, unpredictable. And in my last few years in service to my community, I was put at the police academy to do training and backgrounds, recruiting. But at the same time, I was tasked with developing a wellness program, and I found out the age of death for the 20-year retired male police officer turned out to be 66 years of age. Statistic hadn't changed for about 50 years, and that bothered me. And so that kind of triggered something in me, I suppose, to go study and figure that out. And from the protection and service mentality I had in that career, I just really felt led to expand that into this career with the mission the same, protection and service, and to try to do something different, realizing we did have a broken system. So for me, that's kind of how it began.
I've enjoyed this conversation a lot, man. If you could share a little nugget of wellness advice that could fit in the form of a Twitter post with somebody, or you cross paths with somebody in an elevator and they said, "Hey, what's the best health advice that you could give me right now?" What would you say?
Health is something that's yours. Go get it, treasure it, and hang on to it with everything you've got because it's going to pass away one day. Enjoy it while you got it.
It's beautiful, man. I love hearing the emotion in your voice there because it really shows that you're on the right path. You're doing the next right thing because of the care. I mean, I've got tears in my eyes as we wrap up today's conversation because it has so much meaning as to how you live your life. And I appreciate you giving young whippersnappers like myself a little bit of a roadmap to follow course and learn, explore, dream, discover, and pay it forward. So thank you for connecting today, man.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me. It means a lot. Appreciate it.
Yeah, today was fun. Where can people find you and your wife?
Man, we're super easy. Sherwood.tv is where we're found. It's kind of all our stuff, all we do, books, the movies, the blogs, the videos, and of course all of our services and products.
That's great, man. And can people find you on Instagram or social media as well?
Yeah, on that same website, you can see all of our links there. So we're on Twitter/X and Instagram and all of that as well, Facebook.
That's awesome, man. You've got a reservoir of information. I appreciate you really navigating my complicated questions today. Today was really fun.
All good, man. I appreciate it. Enjoyed that.
Today was cool. Guys, if you enjoyed my conversation with Dr. Mark Sherwood, please rate, review, subscribe, and share with your friends. And as always, stay on the hunt for who you've not yet become. Till next time. Thanks, Mark.